frustrating. I have no idea if it's an issue with my ISP, Restream, or OBS, but once it disconnects, it tries reconnecting and just can't reconnect, even though my internet's working fine. As I said, I'll change to Streamlabs or something at some point. I just need to change my other windows around just to get... I'm getting the latest chat and everything. Twitch, I have Stream Manager. YouTube, I now have the Stream Manager, but I can't video. There we go. All right. I do get a notification when it goes bad though, so hopefully I'll be able to reconnect it a bit more easily. Okay. So, where was I? I was trying to work out why I'm not getting any packets back from the server. I was getting them before. Ooh, that's not good. My UDP transmitter has hard crashed. Appeared to be working. Of course, I think I know what's going to be happening here. In the event the client isn't, like if we're not acknowledging packets and things, then this is going to be generating bigger and bigger records on the server because we're keeping a copy of all of these packets. At some point, it will run out of memory. So I need to put some sort of protection in there. But in the meantime, fixing whatever the bug is that's stopping it from acknowledging packets should be enough to get things working. So what I will do, I'll just stop the client. I'll terminate the, well, I'll clean up the database. Then I need to work out what the, well, I'll look at what the server is actually sending through because this is, yeah, it's going to be it's going to be easiest to debug in the transmitter service. I renamed those UDP services yesterday, by the way. They are RX and TX now. I probably shouldn't call a service RX because that actually means something in JavaScript land. The name of a library has nothing to do with receiving. All right, so over in here, this is where we request that the message gets sent. So this is the easiest place to see what's going on. So with the service running, I presume I can't use debug here. That would be really nice if I could. I'm just going to try that. I can't imagine this will work because it doesn't know how to connect to the Docker container for my code. Possible JetBrains has done some cool stuff in there, like sensing, detecting that I am using Node, and it might know to connect to that. Okay. Oh, there's an issue. Session service didn't come up, perhaps? Session cache didn't come up. Not even mine. That fixed it. Yep, that's fixed it. Yeah, that obviously didn't come up for some reason. Warning. Oh, there's me rerunning it. Yeah, I don't know what went wrong there. Okay, now in the event I need to debug, let's go get ready for that. I'm going to be testing the TX service. So hopefully this is enough to debug it. Otherwise, I will have to debug it through here. Sorry, my mind is just kind of going through some other options of what could be going wrong. Some of the things here. An example of a problem could be, I wonder if we have a race condition where the server might transmit a packet. Here we go. This is actually, oh no, that's the server. If the server tries to transmit a packet, I think the session service might even drop that session if the handshake hasn't finished. That would be a problem. All right, so here we are going to try and transmit this datagram. And I just pause. I think that pauses the game, stops the packets from being sent. Okay. So we have a message. It has some entity updates. And we can see that there is, oh, here it is, scatter. Yep, so there's a stone somewhere. I'm not sure why this is being sent through as an update. There must be a chunk with not many stones in it or something. Oh, it might be just on the edge of a chunk. Like we might not be loading the entire chunk for some reason. That's fine. And then we send through the chunk invalidations. And sure enough, we're getting lots of those. So we let this run through again. And we can see that it keeps on trying to send through these chunk invalidations. In fact, is that list growing? No, it's 18 chunk invalidations on every packet. Okay. Or 19, I should say. So my question then is, why is it not? Why is it not acknowledging those, or is it acknowledging those is a better question. So we've got the session. I suspect this is going to be a large object. Oh, well, that would be a problem because I think we're meant to store the game state in here, aren't we? Where do we store the game state? This is where we load it. Okay, the transmitter has its own game state. So let's just have a look at what the game state looks like for this client. Something has crashed. I'll just restart that. Let this run for a bit. Just disconnect that. Okay, what does our state look like? Uh, okay, so our client state has only 2 chunks for some reason. Got lots of pending messages, so this is the issue with our space, because this array is just going to grow and grow and grow by, it's like several hundred bytes, is it? How much is it growing by? It's growing by 1.5 kilobytes every tick. Yeah, so obviously we need to assume that packets are dead at some point and just drop them. Oh, what am I doing? I'm not meaning to. Oh, try that again. Okay, I'll just let this run for a little bit. Okay. So I have no invalidation X. can see the acknowledgements going through. But the issue I have is this packet here. So it'll see that it's sent out a packet with that ID before. Let's just find. Where is it? Yes. When it tries to process the acknowledgement of this packet, it's going to see that that packet has invalidations as part of it. So let's see, it's the one ending in 5E. So go pending messages, the one ending in 5E, it goes and looks at this packet. It sees that it's got chunk invalidations and it knows that it can't fully acknowledge this packet until it's seen the chunk invalidations for it. So I need to work out how this is meant to be populated. It's clearly not being populated. I think this used to be done by the UDP receiver. It would receive a packet from the client and it would pull out the invalidation acknowledgements and push them into the session itself. Yeah, the error thing happened again, random go. It's very frustrating. I'll hopefully find some time to look into the cause of it. I'll check my OBS logs, and yeah, I'm fairly confident it's not on my end because my internet connection is working fine while it's happening. But I can see OBS just repeatedly trying to reconnect to Restream and it can't reconnect. So I suspect it's a Restream bug. Hello, Metalstorm, and welcome. Okay, so the UDP receiver used to be responsible for populating this. It would pass it through, if I remember correctly, it would call into the session service and set the last scene. It would set the last scene data, like the client ID and the server ACK. So I think that I am failing to set this in the code that is now in the session service. So let's just try the session controller. Check the roots. No, UDP service. So when I receive a datagram, at some point this will be processing the acknowledgements. Here it is, record citing. Invalidation acts. This is the part that, I mean, this looks right. Which suggests that the problem could in fact be in the client. What if the client is never successfully fetching those invalidated chunks? That's totally plausible because I have changed the endpoints there. Okay, I need to find the code that fetches the uh, chunk invalidation. query performer. Oh, this is test code. I don't want the test code. Synthetic load testing. Yes, I do, Metalstorm. It's actually exactly what I'm working towards at the moment. The reason I'm working on the scalability side of things, I intend to have uh, just dummied up clients that behave well. So they'll acknowledge packets and do all that kind of thing. And they'll simulate players that I think will just do like Brownian motion. So they, or some sort of a random walk. And then I'll just see how many instances of that script I can connect to the server. At the same time, I'll also load up a basic AI. I'll probably just use the troll and also have them wandering around so that I can be mixing uh, players interacting with mobs, basically, and just see how the game handles it. There are a lot of cases that doesn't cover, so uh, obviously the performance will change when lots of players and mobs congregate. So that will need to be separately tested. But it would be nice to know how many instances of the UDP receiver and transmitter it takes to support 1,000 users, for example. No, I won't use Unity. I will just use TypeScript. So there won't actually be a game client um, to simulate the players. They'll just be JavaScript that will just connect and pretend to be a Unity client. Because of course I don't need all of the graphic side of things to do load testing. Uh, there's probably something interesting in measuring the performance of the client when there's lots and lots of players on the screen or lots of mobs on the screen. But I think that's less risky than the question of whether or not the server can handle the load of lots of users. The server has to do a lot more processing than the client does. Okay, so where is my chunk invalidation handler? I want where this is actually called. Is our query performer. Alt this. Here it is. Here's my bug. A bit frustrating. I'll just make sure I don't have any more of those lying around. So oh, I've got 2 instances here. So I'll just find instances of localhost colon 155. Yep, I've only got the 2 instances left of this bug. Oops, that's not going to be 8080. 15500 and 15500. Again, this should be coming from the directory service, from the session service. Sends through uh, all the endpoints that the client needs, but well, that would have gotten rid of this bug, wouldn't it? So maybe I should stop putting off that kind of work. That looks better. Still seeing very large packets coming back. And I'm still seeing these incorrect models, but this is starting to look a bit better. These packets so big. Yes, these are massive packets. Something died on backend cause it to... Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm thinking, Metalstorm. Um, I'm not too concerned about the performance of, well, it's more realistic to have attacking and crafting and all that kind of stuff in there. Uh, I'm not too concerned about the performance of that stuff. It's really the message pumping that I need to make sure works, and I can simulate that just with players moving around. So if I have 1,000 players or thousands of players moving and the system doesn't fall over, then I'm fairly confident the whole thing will work. And the reason I have that confidence is the uh, things like crafting are handled by the same service as the AI. So as long as it can process lots of AI, it can definitely process crafting. I'm sure that will come back to bite me at some point, but uh, yeah, I totally agree with your approach though of just having a very simple client library. Obviously, I have to rewrite that library, but these packets are really small. At the moment, the protocol is for the client to send through the player's location. Uh, that would obviously change in the future to instead send through the moves, but it's quite easy to craft those packets. Okay, now what does my state look like here? My state has only a single pending message, so this is looking pretty good. But I'm still getting these very large packets. I mean, these packets are too big to actually go out over UDP once I hit the internet. You know, it's alternating. What is the message being sent out? Let's copy that out so I don't crash my session. I have two sessions. That's unexpected. Oh no, one of them just died. Okay. I think that it was sending out two. It thought there were two clients and it was sending those both to this client. Something's not getting timed out. I'm not too concerned about that. That will go away when I have a player database. So let's hit this breakpoint one more time just so that we can get the JSON for an actual packet. Do that before the session times out. Then back in here, I have renamed those. Done that. JSON document. Okay. Oh, this should be resizable. Uh, JSON widget resizable. Feedback for the author, who sometimes pops uh, into the stream here. Game wheel is very mutable, building, gathering, etc. Game. Make sure that I can comfortably run hunt. Yes. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Um, all right, so what is this packet that I'm sending out? Uh, the entity updates. I mean, I'm not expecting any entity updates to go out. Why am I sending any entity updates? How many are there? I can't remember how to do this. Entity updates. Do that? Yeah, it's only 9 entity updates, but why do I keep on getting 9 entity updates? They should have been act already. I've got a feeling this is just going to be a bug in my diffing code. All right, so this ID ends in 381. Message, entity updates, ends in 381. Okay, so it does appear to be sending through the same entity ID on every tick. What could cause this? Do not know. Yes, Metal Storm, talking about the case of pathfinding where you block off an entire chunk. Um, this is why I always get slightly nervous when people talk about optimizations to pathfinding. So, you've got basic algorithms like A star, and people will often suggest uh, optimizations where you might exclude chunks that aren't on the shortest chunk path, for example. And while, yes, it makes it a lot more performant, it introduces edge cases where it just can't find a solution at all. Uh, or it finds a non-optimal solution. But yeah, whenever there's an optimization like that, you really need to think through all those edge cases so that you can identify them. But yeah, I can imagine a situation where we're making a single simple change to the conditions makes it have to suddenly recompute a lot of paths. All right. So this has to be a bug in, I'm thinking apply delta. Uh, what's the best way of detecting this? I guess if I take the location of this particular entity, I really don't want to lose my session here because the moment I lose this session, I'm going to have to restart this debug session. I'm going to be extra careful here. What is the location of this first entity? It is entity 0 dot position. It doesn't have a location. Yeah, there are a couple of approaches to reducing the to limiting the resources of A star. Uh, one of them is just to limit the stack size, like the state stack size. Uh, there's another way. I'm not sure if I'm remembering it correctly, but there's an algorithm called ID A star, which is iterative deepening A star, and that lets you kind of try to measure. It allows you to incrementally increase the size of the stack, basically, and detect how close you're getting to finding a solution, so that you can decide whether or not you're going to continue searching. It's another algorithm I believe can be used for reducing the peak resources of A star. But I haven't used IDA star in, showing my age here, over 20 years, so I can't quite remember. Why is it not sending through? Sending through the location. I mean, one reason it would do that is if it knew that this component had the correct location, but thought that the components had changed. Yeah, constantly changing is an issue. Um, yeah, so I've mentioned before that one of the things that I've worked on fairly recently is transport routing. So basically, what Google Maps does with when you search for public transport options, and that's an example of a constantly changing network, because buses and trains are constantly reporting back their locations and performance, and so you need to make sure you're using a consistent view of the network. If while you're doing a search, a bus update comes in, then you might suddenly skip that bus because you thought it wasn't possible before and it is possible now. And it's possible to create invalid combinations if you do a search at the wrong time. And so what you have to do there is you have to have the concept of checkpointing within your graph. So that a given instance of A star is able, or not A star, you don't use A star for transit routing, but a given instance of your search algorithm needs to be able to guarantee that it has a consistent view of your data using a checkpoint. That could be pretty difficult on an infinite world, but yeah, that's how it works on transport routing in general. Um, okay, so back to this. Why is this? I really need to see what's in the game state for this particular ID. So what I'm going to do, I might need to use an IntelliJ Scratch for this, given I can't resize that widget properly. Uh, if Yarichar is in chat, then there's some feedback for you. Um, okay. Game state. Oh, no, let's just rerun that because I don't want to lose this session. Let me just do that. I just Lose my session. Think so. Okay, game state. Oh, no, it's in construct server message. I want this one. And then client state. This is the one I want. I'm just going to copy that out as JSON. Let's continue running. Hopefully I still have session. It's not quite an E tag. So the way that my software did it was there was a static copy of the data. So it was the stuff that doesn't change very often. Basically, a description of the road network, like which streets connect to which streets, and a description of all the bus timetables. And that was what we call the static graph. And then it actually applied a patch on top of that. So it was an operation that if you took a static graph and the patch, then you now have a single view of the graph that's live. So at the point that you performed a search, you'd actually take a copy of the patch, um, and then the search would happen using that patch. So yeah, we called them patches. Uh, when the result went back to the client, they don't care anymore about which patch it was generated with. Just as long as the search used a consistent view of the data, then the search results would be valid. And then if they go and do another search, then you expect them to do that search using another patch. If the system had been distributed, so Google Maps, I presume, uses a distributed search, then yes, you need to start being able to communicate that consistency between services. But our search a given search was run just on a single node. There were lots of those nodes, but an individual search was not distributed. Okay. So I've got my JSON here. Let's just get, there is the current game state. So the problem I have here is I need to know what the ID is of this session, which is a bit of a pain. I'm just going to throw a debug line into my transmitter service. So I think I can do that in here. Log.debug. No, so Copilot probably can't help me here. Oh, maybe it can. Let's go log the entity ID of the first entity update. To do it? No. Oh, there we go. Yeah, no, it's not quite what I want. I would have been very impressed if Copilot had been able to write this bit of code. So in here, I'm just going to say message dot entity update. Oops, would help if I typed message right. I want just the first one. I want the entity ID. But I want to first iris. First entity ID is that. Except I then need to do uuid dot from Ruto that. I don't know where this is. Import ID from, no, it's in netcode, I think. Thanks for dropping in, Metalstorm. Catch you around. D not definable. That. Right. I think that will log it. I suspect I'm going to lose my session here. Oh, no, it doesn't like that. Oh, yeah, definitely going to lose my session. Okay. I mean, it shouldn't matter. The game state should be the same. I haven't moved the player. So now if I go and look at, if I look for this entity ID, pause, stop. How do I tell this not to update? I want to copy something out. I hit a breakpoint, and I will be able to copy it out. Go. Okay, so here is my problematic entity. Oh, it is the first entity in the game state. That is awfully suspicious. It has a position. It has opponent. Okay, the benefit I have, if I'm understanding this correctly, then this should be fairly easy to debug. I don't need to worry so much about losing my game state because this happens to be the first entity in the game state object. Now the update that's coming in, we've got our entity ID, that's all fine. Update type, let me just double check that that is an actual update. 2 is an update, yes. Yes, I fixed the UDP ingress issue. And it also explained a problem I was having with my Docker configuration. All my UDP services, I seem to need to set them to host network mode to get them to work. But the reason for that was if you are using the virtual network mode, then Docker sets up a net gateway for you. But my UDP receiver and UDP transmitter were separate hosts, and so the NAT gateway was refusing to route the return traffic. So all I had to do was, well, it was a fair bit of work, but I implemented a sort of a UDP proxy inside it's my session service because I figured it's fairly closely related to the concept of a session. And then the thing that consumes the packets has the messages passed to it. The thing that generates packets goes and hands them off to the session service now. And because they are the same IP address and I bind to the same socket, I can now set everything up in the correct network mode, and it all gets passed through the NAT gateway. So the funny thing is, this wouldn't have worked had I released this on the into the cloud, because the second you tried to connect through a NAT gateway, all of those UDP packets would have gotten dropped. Hello, Griffic. And he just saw your hello as well. Um, Now, this currently looks like the bug I'm working on at the moment, I am pretty confident is not a new bug. Uh, I think I have corrected all of the bugs to do with the uh, um, new proxy service. There will be a tiny bit of extra latency, but it's not really doing much extra work. There's an extra HTTP request in there, but that's an internal to the cloud HTTP request, which they're microsecond, tens, maybe hundreds of microseconds. So I'm not too concerned about that. And I can of course speed that up. If I move to gRPC internally, that would speed things up. But the benefit in having those services separated outweighs any extra latency, because it means that the receiver and transmitter can be scaled independently. And that makes sense to have those scaling independently, because the receiver has a lot less work to do than the transmitter. The transmitter intrinsically has a lot of work to do because it's going and comparing all these big object trees every time it needs to generate a packet. Okay, so um, why is it doing this? Now I wonder if my comparison is getting confused by these IDs. That would potentially explain it. Well, if I look at something like this component here, so this doesn't have a value on it. Now, I'll look at a component with a value on it. So I don't know what this is. What is type 4? That's a delete. Why is it trying to delete an attribute, a component? Ending in 379. Huh. All right, this is going to be the issue. I think it's trying to resend this scatter. You've considered making dumb server mirrors for scaling so the server would update 5 mirrors and those of clients. Yeah, sort of a fan out style approach. Yes, I did see that, Griffic. I'll get back to you on that shortly. I keep on putting off all the non-development side of things, but I will get to that stuff soon. So I think what it's doing is it's seeing this scatter attribute, and for some reason it's trying to delete this attribute and then recreate it. Now, why is it doing that only for these 9? I do not know. Yeah, I haven't looked at it in detail yet, but I was quite impressed um, with the screenshots I saw, with the screenshot I saw. Yeah, it's looking really good, but I'll take more of a look at that soon. Okay, so here we've got our generic updates. Is it just the one? No, I delete this one as well, which is 380. and then I recreate it. So some reason, I keep on trying to delete and recreate these attributes. Actually bring it up now. Show it off on stream. That's oh, yeah, I agree. That looks really good. And a second screenshot. Okay. Enough procrastinating here. Why is this? Ah, here we go. I got it. I got it. I got it. About a year. Yeah, it's incredible how long this stuff takes. So, for some arbitrary update, I can see entity. Sorry, here's one here. No, I'll go to the next one so that it's not the first in a chunk. Here we go. With this one, I can see that it's got some components. They've got IDs and attributes. It all looks pretty normal. But if I go to this one that's not synchronizing properly, yeah, here's the problem. These IDs have hyphens in them, whereas these other ones, if I find further down, the components do not have hyphens in them. How many characters is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 24. So this is a 12-byte ID, whereas these ones that are failing to come through, where's a component? These have the full 16-byte ID. Now I will just make sure that everything else is the same. Come down here, find a component. Here's a component. Got ID, type, attributes, and a scatter is just an ID and a type. Here. Okay, so this is different as well. This is fine, other than the bad ID, but when we don't have attributes, we're generally not storing an attribute's value at all. So what I believe is happening is the differ is coming through, seeing that the IDs don't match, and likely seeing that the attributes on this one doesn't match either. The fix should be really quite simple. It's going to be in generate, oh no, it's going to be in apply delta, because I'm storing these incorrectly. process the components. Okay, hang on. So given a set of entities, a dictionary of entity, and a single update, it pulls out the relevant entity, it updates the transform, that's all fine. Update the coordinates, then the components. Here we go. Wow, how could this code have been broken? um, Updated. Yep. Go through each individual component update. Match is the one that's being updated. Go. Oh, yuck. Who wrote this code? Uh, okay, so if we didn't have a match, oh, geez, thanks, thanks, Copilot. Tell me what you really think. Fix me. This is a hack. Oh dear. We don't want to set an attribute. Um, so the reason I've got to fix me here, by the way, is this is inserting the hyphens. I need to decide whether or not I'm storing those hyphens. I think I do want to store those hyphens. Otherwise, yeah, when this component ID is technically a 16-byte value, the fact that this is generated by Mongo and is only 12 bytes long is of no interest to this code here. So I think I should be storing these as 16-byte values, in which case I might as well make them hyphenated. Uh, so yes, I think I need to. Hmm, I need to work out what to do there. And up here, this is going to complain. It's complaining that this does not have attributes. Is that true? Yes, it is true. Um, Doing away with the MongoDB IDs. I need those IDs so that I can handle deletions and things from the database. Um, and yeah, I do that on the client. I just don't have an ID when things are on the client but don't exist on the server yet. Um, yeah, this is only for stuff once it gets to the server. Um, um, yeah, I guess I could just use a UUID. I do need them to be consistent in Mongo though, and I need to be able to quickly query these things in Mongo. Uh, yeah, I mean, I am almost tempted to. I think I can do two Mongo. I can do that in here. It's pretty tempting to fix it like that. Um, but yeah, you do make a good point that I could be using UUIDs. It would simplify my code a lot. Yeah, part of my issue is I'm not very experienced with Mongo, so I'm not sure how to configure indexes and things to use different types. So if I were using a UUID, I'd have to use a string as my index in Mongo, and I'm not sure how easy that is to set up. Yeah, that makes sense, Griffic. I'm pre-generating on the server. That prevents the obvious issue of clients somehow predicting what something's ID is and tricking you into manipulating data you don't want to manipulate. All right, so I need this code to leave attributes empty if um, if there are no attributes. So yeah, that was my first thought, Griffic. Um, hijacking UUIDs. So if we have a match, in other words, this component already existed, then we use that as the foundation of our reduce operation. Otherwise, I want to do this. I think this is just that, isn't it? Um, I think I need to use strict typing on this to tell it that attributes is an optional value. It's this type. Entity client component. Right. ID type. And attributes. That looks better. So the way Graphic, back to pre-generating UUIDs, the way I handle that at the moment is whenever something gets created on the client side, as a result of crafting or harvesting, uh, what it does is it always makes a request out to the server to replicate whatever that was. So, if it's crafting, then it'll actually put an attribute on, sorry, a component on the player, requesting that action be performed. Uh, the server then sends back a response with the ID of that component. So, um, assuming the operation succeeds, the server can then say, yes, this succeeded, and these are the IDs that I created for it. And so then the client can then go and apply those IDs back. So that's just the way that I handle that. I think this is going to work. That's a component. Let's just try it. It's nice to be working on bugs not related to UDP, I have to admit. It's not a bug that I've introduced recently. All right, so terrain is loading. I've still got these objects that are not getting valid. These packets are much more sensible. Why has it stopped receiving packets? Oh no, there they are. Yeah, I can't remember how I handle that. I do have a way of referencing them. Maybe I don't. Hmm. Yeah, you might have identified an issue for me, Griffith. I'll I'll have to think about how I handle that. Okay, so these packets look much more sensible as idle packets. Got all of my scatter on the ground still. Got these weird things in the distance. Um, I'm actually going to shut this down. I'm getting two different packet sizes, which always makes me a little nervous. Seems to have stabilized. Right, let's see if I can find my actual message. Let's throw a breakpoint in there. Message has an ID, a client acknowledgement, single entity update. Why does it have an entity update? Um, oh, here's the ID of it. Um, all right, where's my game state? That's over here. I will just look for. It's not there. I'm just going to take a guess and assume that it's the player. I don't know what the player's ID is. Oh, that's yeah. Let's Be able to get that just from the session, right? Um, so there's the entity ID ending in 9F4. Nope, so it's not the player. What is this entity? Um, grab a copy of the client state. Copy that out. There it is. It is a player. Bit of a worry. Um, it does look like the player has the wrong ID, but uh, this is not the behavior I'd expect to see if that were the case, because the player's not moving, so they should be sending through the same update every time, and so it won't, it'll be idempotent, and that because of the way we generate packets, it should therefore not see a diff. I mean, unless this position were changing subtly, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And if the player was incorrect on the client, then I'd expect it to be sending through the updates for that player. All right, I'm going to do a slightly dangerous debug here. First entity D is that, and then let's also log debug. That's not what I want. Probably need to go to JSON, don't I? Yes, I do sometimes still get those crashes, Graphic, even with I've got um, IntelliJ. I updated IntelliJ yesterday, and yes, I do still see those crashes, unfortunately. The new version of IntelliJ has given me some nice benefits, though. The debug loop is a lot cleaner. Very little planned over the holidays. Might get away for a little while, but certainly not before the end of the year. Time with the family. What about yourself, Griffith? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So I understand why this update is going out. It's trying to delete a player. It's update type of 4. So the big question then is why does it keep on sending this deletion? My guess is that I'm not handling that deletion correctly in the apply delta. Board games can be good. All right, apply delta. I'm willing to bet that I'm not handling deletion. Yeah, so the reason it'll be trying to delete a player is because one of my sessions will have expired. And as it cleans up after itself, it removes the player from the world. All right. Oh no, there's components. Yeah. Not much, random guy. It's I've fixed the bug causing it to send out or resend all the data on every tick. I now just have an issue when it tries to delete an entity because like a player has logged out of the game. It seems to not update the state correctly. And so the client, it keeps on telling the client to delete that entity. Um, it's usually caused by things working, yes. Yeah, I mean, here I thought the problem was that well, I thought for a moment that the problem was the player ID being incorrect, but no, it was trying to remove a player from the world. So this looks, oh, this is just going to be a mismatch between the ID format, isn't it? Maybe? ID. ID is a UUID string. Get breakpoint in here. Oh, well, this I didn't expect. I'm not hitting that breakpoint. Huh? Well, this would explain why it's not correctly applying the delta if it's not calling this function. Oh, no, that's a test. I don't want to test. Apply delta. Here we go. Um, Tomorrow and the day after. I think so. I can't guarantee it, but I do expect to. Streaming the rest of this week. What does that take us through to 23rd? Yeah, I think that's fine. I might be a little bit quiet the week after that. I'll see how I go. All right, so for each of the entity updates, here we go. Oh, yes, this is a problem. It's unable to delete the entity because it doesn't know which chunk the entity is in. Ugh. Oh no. And it can't know which chunk the entity is in because deleted entities don't have a coordinate. And I don't have a way of propagating that information because I don't want to send that information through to the client. That means I need another index in here. Well, this is a pain. Now, the reason I break the client state up by chunk is so that I can easily invalidate entire chunks. As the player moves around, I want to unload chunks, and so it can send invalidation messages that will just unload all the entities in a chunk, and that makes having this makes that easier. I suspect what I need to do though is instead just make this an index. So for each chunk, just store the IDs of entities in that chunk, and then still store the entities in one big flat array or dictionary. That way I can easily unload chunks still by enumerating the entity IDs in a chunk. This is very frustrating. This is why you shouldn't optimize things until you need to. If I didn't have this optimization, this code would have worked. So rather than fixing it properly, I am instead going to remove the optimization. That means I'll need to fix the code that deletes entire chunks. Yeah, so I could fix this just by making this an index, but it's just more work than it's worth it. So instead, this will be a flat array. Uh, that. So this is the thing that the optimization was put in for, where I can delete an entire chunk worth. But what I instead want to do is this dot client state filter on that. Oh, is Copilot going to be really, really, really cool here? Okay, so this would need to be object dot entries, and then we'd filter that to be ID, entity. Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's meant to be square brackets. Square bracket, square brackets. Still need the curly bracket, the round brackets. There we go. So we just need to pull out the entity. I'm going to end up with a fairly nasty reduce on this one, so let's not do it like this. Oh, that awesome if I actually had a buy chunk. A buy chunk? Don't. Oh, hang on, over here. I do. I already have that optimization in here, over here, and again, Copilot to the rescue. I kind of want to do that. It has any type. Can't be used index type. Yeah. Oh, okay. No, I need the game state by chunk. What? Where on earth is by chunk? No, this is just so this is not valid code. Okay. Let's do this dot client state, and I want to do like a for each entries, iterate over that, ID comma entity. There we go. Copilot finally got it right. Tools. Almost. Ah, let's try this again. It's not quite right. I want it to. So close. That I'm confident is all like it. Okay, so we don't need to do this anymore. What we do instead is we take that deletion and we go through each of the entities and we say, hey, if they are in that chunk, then remove them. Okay. Worth noting that this is going to invalidate all of my current sessions, so I need to bring my database down, otherwise it'll never be able to bring them back in sync because they are not correct format anymore. Why chunk invalidation? Um, hmm. Hello, Fastwings, and welcome. Currently working on the back end of my MMO. On the front end, it is Unity. On the back end, it's my own custom thing using TypeScript. So I think I need to move this out into a separate function. Which I'll call remove entities in chunk. That's going to be chunk key. No, that's not right. Let's pass it as a coordinate. Undo. Undo. I'm going to grab this. I can get rid of all of these. This can come out. Delete entities in chunk. This is a chunk coordinate. Or if I need to yeah, I'm not sure if this is correct. It'll crash if it's not. Okay, so that's how we delete entities from a chunk. Now when we come through here, we're going to get a chunk invalidation. I need to say this dot delete entities in chunk. That. Uh, reference, what do we have in there? Yep. Yeah, my own internal representation here, Fastwing, is not that dissimilar uh, to Dots. It stores everything's an entity, has components, and the whole system itself works by iterating over those entities and components. Okay, so I need to take this key. I suspect that this is actually going to have to be a coordinate. Where do I use invalidation references? Um, okay, const chunk key, we chunk key, that should actually be coordinate. Okay, so what we can do here I know that's a valid value. I suspect the optional will disappear from here shortly, in fact. Uh, to say this dot underscore client state is equal to that. Is it going to give me ref message ID? Okay, so what we are doing here is whenever an invalidation comes in, I delete everything that was in that chunk, and then I reinsert the data that we had cached for that chunk. So that is good. Okay, clean up the invalidation records, pending chunk invalidations, yeah, chunk key. This. Oh, yeah. Could this actually be undefined? Let me have a look at this. Invalidations, no. Invalidations always have coordinates. Therefore, I can always convert them to a chunk key. Oh, that's not the issue. I think this should be just chunk key. That's better. The odds of this code working first go are not great. What was this code before? P. That. No, that's wrong. Use right? No. Coordinate. Chunk coordinate. Yep. All right. Let's just see how this goes. Oh, no, I've got a compile error somewhere. Oh, that's just a test. I might as well just get that at least compiling again. Spin it up. Is my service running? Yes. Okay, connect a client. And watch it all fall over. Oh, that actually worked better than I thought it would. Still got these weird entities in the distance. Still need to sort those out. I don't seem to be receiving packets. Oh, it's because my transmitter is broken. All right. It's in generate delta 159. So oh no, this is okay. Okay, so from here, find okay, 23. So I'm passing in undefined at some point. Source.id undefined. Oh, if not, if not, source.id. All I want in here is the ability to hit the debug. Put a breakpoint in there and catch it failing. There we go. I presume this just hasn't recompiled or something. It's this generate delta. Okay. There's that crash that happens when I start up the debugger sometimes. What I'll do is I'll turn off that breakpoint. Turn it back on. That looks better. So source. Oh, that's very, very broken. Client entity is all right. So we're pulling out an ID somehow. This is going to be something's trying to index into the game state, I guess. Uh, entities looks like it is actual entities. Yep, these are real entities. They have an ID. They have components. Um, so server entities by chunk. So that's come off the screen, but I can confirm that that is a an object mapping all of the entities by their chunk. Here we go. Object.values. This thinks that it's going through and pulling out a chunk worth of data, which is incorrect. So we try to find trying to pull out a chunk worth of data. So all entity IDs. I think this is just flattening, isn't it? Okay. We've got all of the entity IDs. We've just generated that somehow. Oh, yep. Dodgy way of doing it. Well, this can be drastically simplified. Because hmm, this is meant to be the easy fix. Well, this is the easy fix. The other proposed solution was harder than this. I need more comments in my code. That's what I need. Otherwise, I come back to it later and I have no idea what I was doing. All right. Entities is all of the entities in the game, like within range of the player. So yes, I do need to compute all entity IDs. That's fine. We then go through each chunk. Yep, this is easy. This should actually be this dot. It's like this dot client state. And then I can get rid of that stuff. I see what I'm doing here. I will comment this, add some comments. Add entity IDs for the entities in the game state, but no longer in the world. There we go. And I think that will fix that issue. Give that a go. We'll have an invalid session now. Yeah, okay, I've got a stale session somehow, so easiest way to get rid of that is just to blow away my database. Then I need to run Docker. Check the client. I see no entities. Oh, there are the entities. They just took a moment to load. Something's not happy. Oh, here we go. Oh, yes, that's it's just a silly mistake. I've left that dodgy logging around. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to say if message.entity updates 0. That should fix that issue. Now, it still feels like it's sending out too much data. So I don't think I've fixed the original bug. Actual player. Okay, that just come good. I think it did. Now that suggests that I do have a yeah, not a problem, Graphic. This does suggest that I've got a slight problem in my communications because the packets were over 100 bytes for a while, whereas now we can see they're pretty small. Um, is this a good size for an idle packet? It's just, oh, I just crashed it. Let's just grab some JSON. Drop that over in here. What does our packet look like? No, it's still got this deletion. Ah. Yeah, update type 4. Is it trying to delete another player over and over and over again? Okay. Or did I just refactor my code but not even attempt to fix the bug? All right, apply delta. Um, let's see. We get an ACK. Look up the message that's being acknowledged. Yes, is the problem. If I breakpoint in here, should see that the chunk coordinate is null or undefined or something. Chunk coordinate is undefined, which means chunk key will be undefined, means it will give up. Okay. So I just think I can just delete this code here. What that will then do is it will come in here. Entities will be a list of entities that does not include the update. That's fine because this will then just, sorry, entities will include the update. I think. Regardless, it will remove the item from that array. Okay. Save that. Just recompiled. Aha, here we go. Smaller packets going out to the client now. 45 bytes. All right, so these are my idle packets. Beautiful. Now, what are these items doing here? This will be the last thing I work on today, I think, and then I'll finish up my stream. Well, I'll fix this and then I'll look at my to-do list and see what I want to work on next. I may move on to some pub sub because that's the whole UDP issue I found was all intended to allow me to implement my pub sub. All right, so what are these entities? If we just pick one, I need one that I know is not a player. So this one over here is definitely not a player. Yes, I think that the that delta code has now been fixed. There is still something suspicious in my in the network code where it seems to send out updates for a while even after it's been acknowledged. And that could well be just a race condition of some sort where it thinks it keeps on needing to tell me about something. And even after it's been acknowledged, I don't know. It's possible that fixing the deletion handler just then has also fixed whatever that weirdness was. So I'm not too concerned though, because it does eventually come good. Uh, okay. Love rest conditions. What is this entity? Let's fetch this. This is a flat stone. It does not look like a flat stone. Why is it not being drawn properly? All right, time to come into this code here. Uh, I mean, my suspicion, these always seem to appear kind of at the edge of the player's field of view. So my suspicion is that these are coming in as entity updates as opposed to chunk invalidations. And if they come in as entity updates, I'm not parsing them correctly. That is my suspicion. So, oh, it's not the invalidation manager. The remote client? Remote session, sorry. When we receive a packet, uh, we store a pending message, that's fine. And then I presume that gets handled in the update method. Update. So we update all of our timings. We manage timeouts. Pop out the pending message. And we call on message received. Process message from server. That sounds promising. And here we go. Okay. There should be two big loops in here. There's the one that handles the entity updates, and should be one that handles the invalidations. Oh, there we go. Invalidation managed process message from server. That handles the invalidations, but otherwise we come in through here. So I suspect this code is broken. We have a special case to handle updates to the player itself, because don't want the player to be jittering. If we get a delete, then we remove that player. Surely we should also be removing remove that ID from the index. But surely we should also remove the actual entity from the game object, sorry. Score entity index ID. Deleted object is that. think that's right. Next, if it's an invalidation, then it needs to go off and do something, but I don't send those yet, so that's not happening here. If we have a transform, then we update our index. That's fine. On back down in here, we need to return. I need to get out of here in the case that it's a destroy. Otherwise, we're going to come down here and say, hey, this doesn't exist. Let's create a new one. No, we won't. We won't do that because we're inside an if case. It's all right. Yeah, let's that as it was. Doing an update. If it doesn't exist, then we create this entity. Here we go. If it exists, then try instantiating it. All right, I'm going to put a breakpoint on here. We are debugging. Here we go. Now, the update is so we've received an update. Oh, what did I just press? I need to press evaluate. How do I evaluate? Evaluate, Alt F8 to know. All right, so this is definitely going to be an example of the issue because this is trying to create a player capsule. Why? Why? Update. We have an entity ID. We have components. One of those components is an item. And it is clearly a flatstone. All right, so prefab for entity update must be broken. Let's just step in here. For each component, if it is a mob or an item, component in this case is item. So I expect this to be true. Yep. Oh, yeah, this would do it. This doesn't support the new ontology stuff. Frustrating. I've got these two different pieces of code that are so similar. So this code doesn't have the bug. We can see that it tries looking up the ontology. Whereas this one does have the bug. I think I want to get rid of this function completely. Because having this in here twice is just asking for trouble. Oh, I didn't mean to kill Unity. Oh well. Gone now. Okay, so what I'm going to do, what it's currently doing is it's trying to use this update message to try and work out how to construct this new entity. But what I want to happen is I want it to actually update our local copy of this entity, which is going to be this, right? Remote entity data type on that, remote entity data, go to it. I can't go to that, but anyway. Remote entity data is, oh, this isn't an entity. Oh, okay. So the reason I have that duplicated code is because we do have two legitimate ways that this data can get into the system. It can come in as an update, or it can come in by querying entities from the entity service. So to collapse these two functions into one, I would need to improve my code and uh, get it to actually store entities locally rather than what it's doing at the moment, which is just updating the local game objects, like updating components on game objects. Not ideal, but I will solve this the dodgy, hacky way for now. That needs attribute dot name equals that. Dot string value. Okay. There we go. I think that will fix that bug. Spin up Unity again. Loading up on another screen. Server is running, except I don't see the ticker running. Apparently. Oh yes, yeah, okay. I was looking at the wrong log. Okay, run. There we go. The network is already stabilized, so I don't think I do have an issue with my protocol. See the as the log messages scroll past, I can see slightly larger packets coming in every now and then. Just entities loading in the distance. Got a key not found error somewhere in here. It's vicious. But important thing here is that we're not getting those little player capsules. Okay, now if we come back somewhere near where we spawned and start a new session, there's our other player. It's going to come over and stare at that player and make sure they disappear. Disappear after about 60 seconds. Our packet size stabilized really quickly. I don't think 45 bytes is too bad for an idle packet. And I can, of course, suppress those. Like, we don't need to send out idle packets on every tick. If there's nothing to send, I can't imagine we'd need to send a packet more than every second or so. I'm just going to pull up on another screen. Oh, there we go. He disappeared. Promise that wasn't me doing anything. You can see there's 112 bytes coming in. That will have been the packet telling us to delete the player. Came in twice because it's fine. There's a little bit of lag between the server sending the packet and the client acknowledging it. So the server sent 2 packets. This is all good. I am really happy with this. So happy, in fact, that I'm going to commit my work. Add dot minus m. Fixed UDP proxying and various other game client state. Did I do a commit? Yes. Add. Add dot. And then it's I don't know which editor this is, but I don't like it. No. Yes. I don't care. There we go. Yeah, I'll need to set my editor at some point. Should be using Vim. Okay. CD demo. Get the same message in there. That out to Bitbucket. And push one out to Bitbucket. Nice. I need to find my to-dos now. See what else I was hoping to work on today. I'm likely to finish up very soon though. Yes, okay. This one here, store the session service instance on assistant session data. Um, the issue here is that when the service that generates the packets tries to send a packet out to the client, it has to go via the session service. Um, and it has to do that so that the port numbers can line up and allow our packets to get through NAT gateways. If we have multiple instances of the session service, each session is fundamentally tied to a single instance of that session service. And I can't really change that because we need those IP addresses to line up. I've taken advantage of that to some extent by moving a bunch of the session state into memory. But what I need to do is I need to ensure that when the UDP transmitter, when the packet transmitter transmits a packet, that it goes out to the correct instance of the session. The way to do that is to actually store the IP address of the server in the session storage. That way, when the transmitter goes to send a packet, it can know which IP address to send it to. If anything goes wrong or if a server comes down, like a proxy comes down, that's fine. Those sessions will time out really quickly and the clients will reconnect and everything will come good again. So let's just see how I'm going to fix this. After I've got this working, I will finish up the stream today. I think this is going to be really straightforward. I've got a persistent session object. And so in here, I need to store the session URI, I guess. No, I'll make it the transmit URI. So this is the endpoint that needs to be called in order to communicate back with the client. But it's a server URI, not the client's URI, not the client's IP address or anything. Okay. So there's that. Back in here, this should now not be compiling anymore because I need to actually populate this. Okay, so we load a player into the world. Then we set transmit URI. To be I don't know. Can I get Copilot to do this for me? Thank you. Oh no, that's Redis. I don't want Redis. Let's say TypeScript get host IP. Fair enough. So obviously I'll need to be careful about this once I go into the cloud because while I know I don't have multiple IP addresses on this Docker instance, once I'm in the cloud, that depending on how I configure these services, that might not always be true. A new file here called TS. import network interfaces from OS. I can just do all of this at the top level. There's no need to execute this on every request. Um, um, oh, um, thanks, IntelliJ. Simplify. Still need to work out what I'm complaining about. Possibly undefined. It's not name, right? Oh, I see. Uh, what do we do with name? Do we only use that lookup? No, we do that in there. What I actually want in here, is gonna simplify all of this stuff. Um, objects dot object dot entries on nets. Um, do that. I'm going to make that an empty list. Um, okay. Dot each. No, I can just map these. Filter. Um, name and interfaces. We're going to say and that. That should interface. Oh, we can't call it interface. Call it data. Adapter dot object possibly no, let's do that. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of really wanting to get this uh, the refactor of the session service finished, and this is the last change that's needed. Um, so this is just ensuring that whenever the packet generator sends a packet out, that it always goes out to the correct proxy. Otherwise, the packets will get lost going back to the client. So I just need to store the session service's IP address on the session itself so that those packets always get routed correctly. And I'm currently having real troubles with this code. Uh, yeah, I see here. Okay, so yes, this should be interfaces. This should be turning interfaces dot. It's not some. I want all, every. No, wait. Some interface. Yep, let's do that. Thank you, Copilot. All right. So try and find. It's frustrating. I might just use their code. Otherwise, I'm going to use myself. I just need to make this a question mark dot that double question mark that. Uh, yeah, at some point I need to improve this because I mean, if I have IPv6, I should be using IPv6. Here we've got wait a second. I need to make sure. Let's just see what these things look like. Do they have IPv4 at all? Yep. It's IPv4. Good to know. A name, it says there. All right. Oh, nice one. I mean, how does Copilot know that that's the name of the function I want? All right. No, that's not what I want. I want to just return results. Um, I just want any old result. Values, results, 0, 0. Dodgy, dodgy. Transmit URI is going to get the local IP. And it is going to stuff it into a URL slash sessions slash session ID slash transmit. Links are not secure. Yeah, thank you. This is internal. That should be safe, and I am not going to configure HTTPS for inter-service communication. All right. I think that will work. Our session service should have just rebooted. It crashed. Sessions controller line 52. 2. What? I just not save. Oh, there we go. Well, these massive payloads are a problem. There's no way they'd make it out. So something to keep in mind. What does my session look like? Point, get all sessions. Oh, I don't have a new session. I'll transmit URI. Here we go. So that looks pretty good. Now what I need is the transmitter, and it sends a packet out. Datagram. This should be okay. This can't use the standard client. Yes, so I can't use this URL because it might be the wrong session service. I could have a factory in here that might be sensible to factory so that I'm not constantly recreating these clients. For now, though, I'll just have a single transmit client. How do I create a new? Oh, create a simple um, Oh, okay. I can get a default client. Yeah, this will work just fine. So I'll get rid of that. Get rid of that. Then when we transmit, and incidentally it's TX. I blame Copilot for that one. Oh, my voice is getting. So I can't use the client. I have to use Kai. Well, transmit URI. All right. I need to close. I need to kill off that session because it's going to have uh, the wrong instance on it. Sorry, the wrong endpoint. I think I will burn the database. Hopefully this works first go. It'll work first. Transmitter. Okay, transmitter is up. Connect. And something's not working. Oh, it's unexpected. Okay. Grab a shell on the session service. Terminal. Check its IP address. 20.0.10. Transmitter. Trying to connect to 20.0.10. Do I have a shell on these boxes? Yes. 72.0.10. Oh, I don't have a port number. That's better. 8080. So that should colon config dot. Hey, watch the services come up. We still need a transmitter. Receiver, there they are. Connect. Okay, you can see the chunks getting loaded by the client. Come stable. Okay, we're transmitting. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Now the final test here is if I spin up a number of session services. So how do I do this? It's like employee replicas. Let's have 10 replicas. Now this would not have worked before. And the reason is that the transmitter would have connected to the wrong session service 90% of the time. No, press rerun. I was hoping that wouldn't stop. I was hoping it would just start the extra service. Session. Okay, we've got lots and lots of these session services running. This log message is to be expected. So this is what will happen if a service gets disconnected. If a service gets, a session service gets restarted, they lose their in-memory context. And so clients will have to reconnect. That's fine. Now, why do I only have one service? Something is not happy. Oh, hard. I can't. Lost my mouse. There we go. Um, oh, something is really unhappy. Error. Cannot start. Driver failed. Oh, of course. Yes, since these are sitting behind NAT, and I'm trying to expose ports, that's not going to work. As a workaround, 155.50 or 155.99 or something. And I'll just have to modify the client to get it to. I'll be able to control which session service the client connects to by just changing the port number on the server, on the client. All right. So let's try that again. Casing. Ooh, this looks much better. Yep, and we find out which port they're connected to. Well, they're exporting on here, so I don't know where 15540 is. 8, 9. Okay, 15540 is session service 7. So now if I connect a client, entities load. Our transmitter hopefully stays happy. Loaded. Transmitter is indeed happy. Session server 7, we can see is processing all of the traffic. If we go to another one, it's not processing any traffic. If we choose another of these though, and check its port number, so let's go 15545. Yes, and we change this to 15545. That's correct. Using myself for a moment there, I thought I had to update the HTTP port as well, but that all goes through Nginx. So something just feels wrong here. Yes, because the IP address gets set. Yeah, something is wrong. We need to tell the client which server and port they're connecting to as well, which I'm not going to be able to do in this situation. And the reason is that those hosts can't see which port they're exposing. I could probably pass that data through somehow using Docker, but this is not going to be a problem in the real server. So I'm actually satisfied that this is good enough. My only concern is, how did that last one work? Well, I think this one won't work. Is a good enough test. So what's going to happen here is we'll request a new session. It will go out to an arbitrary port, and you can see we're not getting any entities loading. If we grab the session, we have no sessions. And the reason is one of these instances will have cleaned up after itself. So we can see it's getting these packets from the client. It doesn't expect them, so it's ignoring them. And if we scroll back through here, we should see it's trying to generate a message, generate a few messages. But these will have gone out to the wrong server because well, I'm not too concerned about this particular case. This is just not what's going to happen once it's out in the cloud. These will genuinely be attaching to different IP addresses on a fixed port, and the client will know what that port is. So, finishing up, I can reduce these replicas to 1 just so that I don't cause this issue to happen. There we go. So I think that I'm going to finish up here. Stack down, fit my code after the stream. And thank you everyone for joining. I will be streaming, I expect, same time tomorrow. So look forward to seeing